this bugs me big time when I am looking either at the news or I'm looking for topics for the podcast or for when I write for the paper or whatever, and I see someone claiming research that is just not right. Like they're making a claim for a research paper, and when you actually look at the research, the data, like the claim is just wrong. And so this one is one of those scenarios. In addition to that, it's about something that I really, really hate, and it's making that thing look good. So I'm super unhappy with everything about this topic.
This episode is so pessimistic.
I know, right? Sometimes I get on my fire and brimstone soapbox. Okay, so this is a segment over a recent study on medical tourism and the complication rate allegedly being lower, but that data is actually wrong or deceiving. So, talk about medical tourism all the time. Danica, if you're not sure what that is, medical tourism is when somebody, perhaps in the United States, goes to the Caribbean to get plastic surgery because it's a lot cheaper. The cost of doing business down there is much cheaper than the United States, so you can get plastic surgery for like 30 cents on the dollar.
Really?
Yeah, totally cheap. But there's a lot of huge problems with medical tourism. First and foremost, you have no idea if the doctor and or the facility that you're going to are legit. Are they properly certified? Is it regulated? Really, you have no idea. It's hard to even know in the United States if people are properly certified. So that's one of my biggest complaints. The other one is that when you have plastic surgery and you have complications, it's generally not in the first few days, it's usually later. So what invariably happens, and I treat these patients literally all the time, this patient goes out of the country, they get surgery, first day or two they're doing okay, they go back home, and then they have complications, and then they don't have access to their surgeon, and suddenly they're scrambling to find someone to take care of them, and generally nobody will, so they end up in the emergency departments.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've seen like a lot of videos about like South Korea being really good in plastic surgery.
Yeah, well, South Korea is like legit. So I mean, there are issues with medical tourism just in general. Even if you're going from like first world country to first world country, most of the medical tourism that occurs happens from first to third world because people are going for the cheap prices. If you go have plastic surgery in South Korea, it ain't gonna be no cheaper than it is in the United States.
Okay, I was just wondering, like,
yeah, this is a good
I thought
question.
they were the best.
So other problems with medical tourism, poor doctor-patient relationship, which invariably increases the risk of problems. No recourse if malpractice happens. Like if you go have plastic surgery in Dominican Republic or Mexico and you get totally botched, you cannot sue your doctor. Like it's just not going to happen. And then probably the other, all of these are important, but one of the bigger important things is the notably higher complication rate. This has been proven time and time again in numerous research papers that have been out there that when you go and get surgery abroad, the complication rate's higher. So this new study, and I took a picture of the article, Brenda, throw that up. Yeah, Fox, I can't believe Fox is throwing this up there. Largest study to date shows plastic surgery and medical tourism can match or surpass U.S. safety benchmarks. So when I saw this, I was like, yeah, there's no way that this is right. So I'm gonna break down this study for you and tell you why this study is. Well, what the data shows is, I mean, the title is technically true, but the data is just all wrong, and I'll explain what that means. So first off, this study is out of Colombia. Now, Colombia is not the worst place to get plastic surgery. There are many, many places much worse to get plastic surgery than Colombia. So Colombia, although I would say is not on the level of the United States, just my opinion, it is pretty good. So, okay, maybe they would have, you know, a complication rate that's hopefully close to being on par. But there are a lot of flaws and problems with the title or the claim that they're making when you look at the data. So the claims come from this one single place in Colombia. It's basically an advertisement for them, which does it. When a place is doing a study about themselves to make themselves look good, we call that bias. Like they have a bias to make the study have an outcome that's favorable. You know, if you're doing research, it's better if it's an independent person doing it. So right off the bat, the fact they're doing this research on their own selves to get a good result for marketing purposes makes me very pessimistic about it being accurate. Sorry, my brain just really totally went off the rails there for a minute. So they claim that the rate of medical tourism complications 6%, which is kind of on par with the United States. They did break that down into subcategories. In some subcategories, the complication rate was the same, and in a few it was actually lower than United States standards. So first off, claiming that medical tourism complication rate's low when it's data from one single clinic is false. You could say potentially that this one clinic might have a rate of complications similar to the United States, but you certainly cannot say that medical tourism in general does, because it's just one clinic. It has no kind of indication of medical tourism as a whole. So right off the bat, the whole title is misleading. Does that make sense?
It's just clickbait.
Yeah, right. It's clickbait. Very, very good. They did have 2,300 patients, which ended up having 7,100 procedures, so it is a good number. However, the worst absolute part of this study, as far as the conclusion that they drew, is that the complications they included only were complications that happened while the patient was there in Colombia.
Oh my God.
Right. That's actually a huge, huge problem and red flag with the conclusion, because as I said in the very beginning of this segment, the overwhelming majority of complications that happen in plastic surgery happen later. Like, you don't hang out in Colombia for 4 weeks after you have surgery. Most people have surgery, they stay for a couple of days, they go to their first checkup, and then they're gone. And then the complications happen. So when they say it's a 6% complication rate, they're probably ignoring 3 times as many complications that happened after these patients went home, because these patients were all medical tourism patients. They weren't patients from Colombia. They're patients that flew in. I think 90% were from the United States, 10% from Canada, 1% from various other places. So by only including the complications that they documented there while the patient was there, it's not counting an enormous number of complications that certainly occurred. Also, they talked about a 1% systemic short-term complication rate, which included things like deep venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, which is a deadly thing, pneumothorax, which potentially could be deadly, and atrial fibrillation. A 1% complication rate of those things is staggeringly high.
Really?
The number, I do 300 to 400 surgeries a year. If I had a 1% systemic complication rate, that would mean I'd have 3 to 4 patients in the hospital with potentially life-threatening problems every year.
What is like the word they said, the long one? What does like that mean?
Which one?
The first one, it was like short-term something.
Systemic?
Yeah, what is that?
Systemic. So, okay, great question. So a systemic complication would be one where, like, say I do a breast augmentation and the breast implant gets an infection. That's a local complication. A systemic complication is a complication that's so bad it affects your whole body. So like deep venous thrombosis, which are basically blood clots in your legs, pulmonary embolism, which is where those blood clots go to your lungs and it's a potentially life-threatening problem, pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung, which I can't believe that they're even getting collapsed lungs from plastic surgery. That means that, if you're getting a collapsed lung from plastic surgery, you should hang up your scalpel, because that is not a complication you should be getting.
That's
That's
horrible.
awful.
Right, so to claim that they're having like 1% systemic complications is like terrible, and that doesn't again include the ones that happened after people got home. So, basically this study is comparing their best case, very short-term data that's extremely limited without including all complications, to the US registry data, which is enormously comprehensive and it goes over enormous periods of time. So you're comparing apples to oranges here, and it's not even a good comparison, because they're leaving out the worst apples and comparing it to every orange on earth. Ooh, that's good. I'm really proud of myself.
I just can't believe that like Fox is like allowing them to post things like this. Like, it's just
the news people just see it as, hey, this is different than like what everyone in the world thinks, right? That's why it attracts attention, because if you ask any doctor out there, whether it be plastic surgeon or otherwise, and you say, hey, is medical tourism a good idea? They're going to be like, no, it's a terrible idea. Like, people die from it literally all the time, or get horrible complications, and there's just all of these issues from medical tourism. So we're out here saying, hey, this is a bad idea, don't do this. And then suddenly a research paper pops up that says, hey, actually the complication rate's lower than if you get surgery in the United States. Someone's going to see that and be like, hey, this is different. People will click this. It's clickbait. It's good clickbait, right? But unfortunately, the data is just completely wrong. So I'm going to follow this one, because I only saw the one Fox News picks this up. I initially pulled this article from the actual research paper that popped up in just like a throwaway, news article when I searched for plastic surgery. But man, if this goes mainstream, I'm gonna start calling my media people and I'll be like, actually.
Oh my god! Don't say that ever again.
Come on, that was good.